Hi, my name is Gianna. I go to the Maxwell School of Public Policy at McGill University, and today I wanted to talk to you about how a Ukrainian victory could reshape the world. Now, just for some context, after months of prolonged fighting and Russia seizing so much Ukrainian territory, the Ukrainian offense has now fought back and regained thousands of kilometers of territory, which is huge. With these latest victories, it's looking like Ukraine could actually win this war, and a lot of people are wondering what the effects of that would be. One of the effects could be pressure on NATO countries to allow Ukraine to join the NATO alliance, as Jack Burnham says in this article. On top of that, if Ukraine joined NATO, they might expand their war aims and seize Russian territory. So there's a lot of complicated issues at hand, and there's a lot more to what a possible Ukrainian victory could look like. If you're interested in reading more about this, I have this article linked in our link tree in the bio. Check it out.
Hi there, my name is Anmol Gupta, and I am a Master's of Public Policy student here at McGill's Maxwell School of Public Policy. Today, I want to talk to you about this article that I recently published in our newsletter called Canada Has a Problem with Clinical Trials. We Cannot See Them. So, clinical trials are really important for patients and their doctors because it's how they evaluate new medicines and treatments, and it's really important for doctors and their patients to make the important decisions about care. Unfortunately, a lot of times these clinical trials are not really visible or transparent, and it really prevents doctors and patients from making the most well-informed decisions. And Canada really has a problem on this. Unfortunately, only 3% of clinical trials are fully visible to the people who need to see them. And also, when clinical trial results are not made publicly available, it can lead to repeated research because scientists don't know what's been done and what hasn't. And that's a real big problem, especially when clinical trials are funded with taxpayer money, as is in Canada. So in this article, I talk about 3 potential solutions that Canada could implement today to try to improve the issue, including naming and shaming those who are not compliant with the law, making sure that trials are prospectively registered or registered when they're started, so it's much easier to track who's compliant and who's not. And third, thinking about how important clinical trial transparency is when we're planning for future pandemics. So I hope you'll take a read and share your thoughts. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Gianna Formica. I attend the Maxwell School of Public Policy at McGill University, and today I wanted to talk to you about the latest Iranian protests. Now, you've probably heard a lot about these protests in the past couple weeks, but for those who do not know, this all started when Mahsa Amini was arrested by the Iranian morality police for wearing an improper hijab. 3 days after being arrested and put in custody, she died after falling into a coma. Now, many Iranian people believe there was foul play out here by the police, and her own family said she had no pre-existing conditions. Her death sparked outrage and led to widespread protests in Iran, with women at the forefront. Rama Aslam, a Master of Public Policy candidate at the Maxwell School, argues that this is bigger than just Mahsa wearing an improper hijab. She argues this is a larger struggle for women's emancipation in Iran. It will be interesting to see how the next month unfolds in Iran, but if you would like to read more about this perspective in Rama's article, you can click on our Instagram in our bio, and that'll lead you to our link tree to read it.
Hi, my name is Haley, and I wrote the article for The Bell this week. This article is about the experiences of migrants and displaced people in the north of France, and it's inspired by my experience this past summer volunteering with a grassroots nonprofit called Project Play, which provides play sessions to children in informal refugee living sites. In the north of France, where these refugees arrive, they're hoping to get to the UK, but they are frequently evicted and treated inhumanely by French security forces. And this is part of a French border security policy called the Zero Fixation Policy. It's funded by the UK government and basically strips away regular human rights from displaced people. It's very important that we keep our eyes on what's going on in Calais because people deserve more than what they are currently getting. And I just hope you can read the article and understand a little bit more about what's going on. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Simon Top. I'm worried about Canadian democracy, and so should you. Democracy relies on 3 things. It relies on voter turnout, relies on a robust media, and it relies on people to actually be in the elections as candidates or volunteers. When this works out, it means that we get a more accountable government, we get a more stable government, and we get a more legitimate government. That's how democracy works. It's a good thing. All three of those things are breaking down here in Canada. Voter turnout is low. So we've got roughly around 30% of the country not voting in the federal elections or the Quebec election. And then there's the Ontario election, where 57% of the population didn't vote. That's the worst it's ever been. That messes up the whole legitimacy thing about the democracy in Canada. It means that right now Ontario, the one I just mentioned, Doug Ford's governing with 18% of the population having actually cast a vote for him. The legitimacy there, it's not really there. We also need to talk about media, right? We're supposed to have a robust media that tells us what's going on in the world, what's going on in our province, in our country. In Canada, the Canadian media has shrunk by a lot. There are 10,000 less journalists, roughly, being employed in Canada. And that means that there's just less coverage, there's less accountability, and especially local news just isn't being covered at all, really. It's also really hard to get people to run for office, just in general, right? Because online abuse is relentless. You don't necessarily get a job at the end. You have to devote months of your life without a job. And who's able to do that? Who has the time? Very, very few people. Same thing for volunteers. So that means we have less options at the ballot box, and there's less people that feel engaged with this democracy. The reason we need to be worried about that is because people are feeling like the system isn't working for them. They're feeling like the sort of pillars of our democracy are breaking down. And what that does is that leaves us pretty vulnerable to people proposing alternatives. Alternatives that are spread by lies, are spread by misinformation online, and are spread by just a general sense of anger and not feeling represented in our country. So that's why this title here, the reason that this is being asked is because I think at the moment we're not. The convoy in Ottawa showed that there is an appetite for reactionary populism that hates the system as it is. And frankly, the system as it is isn't working as it should. So if we ignore this problem, we're leaving ourselves wide open for some kind of alternative that I don't think we'll like.
Hi, my name is Gianna Formica. I'm a Maxwell School of Public Policy candidate at McGill, and today I wanted to talk to you about why Republicans have a grasp over Florida. Now, as you saw in the midterms, Governor DeSantis won by a huge margin, nearly unprecedented by almost 20%. As a native Floridian voter, I often get asked about Florida politics. Why Governor DeSantis is so popular, why Republicans consistently have won in the past few years. And with my experience and statistics and discussions I've had with other Floridians, I've come to a few conclusions of why Republicans have a grasp over Florida. First, Ron DeSantis and other Republicans took a firm stance during the pandemic. Since May of 2020, they have been pro-opening schools, pro-opening businesses, and whether people disagree with that or not, whether public health officials disagree with that or not, Ron DeSantis' popularity has only increased since the pandemic. Second off, Ron DeSantis and other Republicans also push back against political correctness and cancel culture, which feeds into the culture wars. A lot of people tend to like that. Especially because your average American doesn't really like cancel culture, whether the internet says it matters or not. Third, throughout the entire midterm election process, Republicans, especially like Marco Rubio, focused on economic issues like inflation and rising grocery prices, rising gas prices. And at the end of the day, that matters to Floridians more than social issues. And I have statistics to back this up in the article. And lastly, this is arguably the most important reason why Republicans have dominated the state, and it's because they are amazing at capitalizing on Latino fears. Many Latinos, especially from Cuba and Venezuela, have come to Florida for a better life, and they are scared of socialism and communism coming to the U.S. Republicans have capitalized on this fear and say, hey, Democrats will bring communism and socialism to the U.S. Don't vote for them. We will be the party of economic prosperity and business prosperity. And Latino voters vote for that because that's what they value. Democrats can do a few things in the long term. First, they need to build from the ground up and reach out to Latino voters, not just expect their votes because they're pro-immigration. Second off, they need to focus on the issues voters actually care about, like economic struggles. And third, they need to stop focusing so much on political correctness. Even though it's very popular online, it's not popular for the average American or Floridian voter. If you would like to read more about this, you can click the link in our TikTok bio, which will lead you to our Instagram and lead you to our wonderful newsletter.
Hi there, my name is Linda Bowie, and I am a student at the Maxwell School of Public Policy. This week I wrote in the Bell on participatory budgeting. Participatory budgeting is a process that empowers local citizens to be able to deliberate and vote on their priorities in their community of where the local budget should go towards. It first started in Brazil, which has now expanded to many cities across the world. And only recently have we seen some of this budgeting process pop up in cities in Canada, with the city of Montreal allocating an annual budget to at least 2030 to allow citizens to vote on projects that they want to see happen in the city. While there are many benefits to putting in place this program, especially allowing citizens to voice their concerns and their priorities, there are, of course, still challenges to putting this in place, mainly on whether or not citizens' voices would be listened to, how slowly this process could take to roll out. This may lead to people feeling disempowered and engaged in the process, which is the complete opposite of the goal. So on the flip side, there is an opportunity to build these programs out to ensure that citizens are engaged from the beginning in how they want to see this roll out. This might look like the government mandating a pre-budget cycle that allocates at least 5 to 15% of their annual budget, if not more, towards these citizen budgets, and committing to a longer term plan. This is particularly important if governments are seeking to be more transparent, to reallocate resources more equitably, and involve more citizens in the democratic process. It's definitely a policy area that I think will continue to gain traction, so definitely an area to stay tuned into.